Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into Judges chapter 1.
Oh, this is a good one.
It is. It's all about conquering and compromising.
Lots of action and drama.
Definitely. So we're picking up right after Joshua dies, and the Israelites are ready to finally claim the promised land.
You know, that land God promised them way back when.
Right. Generations have passed since that original
But
promise.
now it's their turn to make it happen.
No pressure.
Right.
So the book of Judges really doesn't sugarcoat things. It shows how their choices, to fully obey God or to kind of take shortcuts.
Yeah, those choices had a huge impact on their lives.
For sure. That's a
Right.
pretty raw look at human nature.
Even thousands of years ago.
Okay, so who steps up first in this whole conquering business?
Well, it's the tribe of Judah.
They're the ones who take the lead.
Yep, God tells them to go first.
And do they go it alone?
Actually, the tribe of Simeon joins forces with them.
Interesting. So teamwork from the get-go.
It seems like it. And together, they managed to conquer some pretty key areas, even Jerusalem.
Whoa, Jerusalem. That's like capturing the capital city, right?
Exactly. It must have been a huge morale boost for the Israelites.
You think?
Oh, absolutely. But, things get a little intense in this chapter.
Oh, I bet. What about that story of the Canaanite king, Adoni-Bezek?
You mean the guy who gets his thumbs and big toes cut off?
Yeah, that's the one. That's a pretty graphic detail.
It's one of those things that really sticks with you. And what's even more chilling is what he says afterward.
What does he say?
He says, "As I have done, so God has requited me."
Wow, like he's acknowledging some kind of cosmic justice.
It really seems that way.
Okay, that one gives me chills. It definitely shows just how brutal things were back then.
No doubt about that. But not all the stories are quite graphic. We also have the story of Caleb's daughter, Aksa.
Oh, yeah. She's a fascinating character.
She's definitely a strong woman.
So tell me about her story.
Well, her husband receives some land as a reward, and Aksa, being the smart cookie she is, she speaks up.
She doesn't just accept whatever she's given.
Nope. She asks for something even more valuable: springs of water.
Springs of water.
You see, in that region, water was absolutely essential.
It makes sense. So she's not just thinking about the land itself.
Exactly. She understands that without water, the land is basically useless.
It's like she's thinking long-term,
Yeah.
strategically.
Right. She's thinking about the resources that make the land truly valuable.
That's brilliant. It shows that even back then, strategic thinking and speaking up could really pay off.
I agree. But, as we keep reading, we see that not all the tribes were as successful, or maybe we should say obedient, in driving out the Canaanites.
Oh, what happened there?
Well, some of them, like the tribes of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Zebulun, they kind of take a shortcut.
A shortcut.
Yeah, instead of fully driving out the Canaanites like God commanded.
They didn't?
They didn't. They decided to subdue them and make them work as forced labor.
So they figured, why go through all the trouble of fighting when we can just make them work for us?
Pretty much.
That sounds tempting, but I have a feeling it backfired.
You're right, it did. This partial obedience, this blending of cultures, it led to some serious consequences down the road.
It's like sweeping dirt under the rug, right? Eventually it's all going to come out.
Exactly. And for the Israelites, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, man. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat here. What kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait. This is getting good.
So you're right, things did not go well.
I figured as much. I mean, compromise rarely works out in the long run, right?
Especially when it comes to matters of, faith and obedience.
Okay, so spill the beans. What kind of consequences are we talking about here?
Well, one of the biggest issues was idolatry.
Idolatry. You mean like they started worshiping other gods?
Exactly. The Israelites started worshiping the Canaanite gods alongside their own God.
So they're trying to have it both ways.
Kinda, yeah. And, it's understandable in a way. They're surrounded by these people with different beliefs.
It's like peer pressure, but on a cultural level.
Right. It's easy to get influenced by the people around you.
Like if all your friends are jumping off a bridge, you're more likely to jump too.
Haha, well, maybe not that extreme. But you get the idea. It takes a lot of strength to resist those kind of influences.
I bet. And I imagine that didn't go over well with God, right?
Not at all. God had made a covenant with them, a special agreement.
And part of that covenant was that they would worship only him.
Exactly. And their disobedience, well, it weakened their relationship with God.
Kind of like when you break a promise to a friend, it damages the trust between you.
Perfect analogy. And this broken trust, it left the Israelites vulnerable
Vulnerable to what?
to all sorts of problems. Remember, they were supposed to be set apart, a holy people.
But by blending with the Canaanites, They lost that distinction.
Precisely. They blurred the lines, and that had some serious consequences.
Okay, so we're talking spiritual consequences. But didn't this compromise also have, practical consequences as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you have a group of people within your society who are, let's say, resentful.
Because they've been conquered and forced into labor.
Exactly. That's not exactly a recipe for peace and stability, is it?
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much. It creates this underlying tension, a constant threat of conflict.
It's like they traded a short-term victory for a long-term headache.
A perfect way to put it, and that's exactly what happened. The Canaanites who remain, they became a thorn in the side of the Israelites.
So instead of enjoying this peaceful promised land, they're constantly battling.
Exactly. And, this whole idea of compromise backfiring, it's not just an ancient story. It feels incredibly relevant to our lives today.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how many times have we taken the easy way out, only to regret it later?
Countless times, I'm sure. Whether it's telling a little white lie to avoid conflict, or cutting corners at work.
Or maybe staying in a relationship that's not really working just because it feels easier than breaking up.
All great examples. Those seemingly small compromises, they can have a ripple effect.
Creating bigger problems down the road.
Exactly. And that's the danger of compromise. It often seems harmless at first.
But it can lead us down a path we never intended to go.
A path that ultimately takes us further away from God and our true purpose.
So if we know that compromise can be so damaging, how do we resist the temptation? Especially when it seems like everyone else is doing it.
That's the million-dollar question. And one we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll look at some practical strategies for staying true to our values, even when the pressure is on.
Okay, so how do we actually do it? How do we resist that temptation to compromise?
It's like anything else that's worth fighting for. It takes effort. It takes intentionality.
Right, it's not just going to happen automatically.
Definitely not. I think
Wow.
one of the most important things is to, first of all, really get clear on what your values are.
Yeah, like what do you actually stand for?
Exactly. What are those non-negotiables in your life?
It's like, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Yeah. You'll end up wandering aimlessly. So yeah, spend some time really thinking about what matters most to you.
What are those principles, those lines you're not willing to cross, no matter what?
Right. And once you have a good grasp on those values, it makes it so much easier to make decisions.
Decisions that align with who you really are.
That's it. You're less likely to be swayed by the crowd or by those tempting shortcuts.
Because you've got that inner compass guiding you.
Exactly. And another thing that's super helpful is to surround yourself with the right people.
Oh, tell me about it. The people you spend time with make such a difference.
They really do. You want to be around people who support your values, who encourage you to be your best self.
It's like if you're trying to get in shape, you don't want to hang out with people who are constantly eating junk food.
Right. You need those workout buddies, those people who are going to motivate you.
And hold you accountable.
Exactly. So be intentional about who you let into your inner circle.
And just as important, don't be afraid to distance yourself from relationships that are dragging you down.
There's people who are constantly tempting you to compromise or who don't respect your values.
Sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do.
For both of you, it creates space for healthier, more supportive connections.
So we need to get clear on our values, surround ourselves with awesome people, and like you said earlier, be ready to make those tough choices.
That's it. Because living with integrity isn't always easy.
There will be moments when you're tempted to take the easy way out.
For sure. And that's okay. It's part of the journey.
We're all human. We all make mistakes.
Exactly. The key is to learn from those stumbles, to get back up and keep moving forward.
And to remember that we're not in this alone.
That's so true. We have God to guide us. We have each other to support us.
And we have the wisdom of the scriptures to learn from.
Like this story from Judges, it's a reminder that our choices have consequences.
And that staying true to our values, even when it's hard, ultimately leads to a more fulfilling life.
A life that's aligned with our true purpose.
Well said. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring these powerful themes with you.
We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little challenging.
Remember, the journey of growth and self-discovery is ongoing.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to be the best version of yourselves.
Until next time, grace and peace to you all.